afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Live at 4 on this lovely October day.
It got warmer this afternoon.
It did warm up this morning.
It was sweater weather this morning.
This morning, yes,
yeah.
it was sweatshirts and sweatpants.
Refreshing.
Exhilarating, I think, is the word. We'll get to the weather in a minute. But first, topping our news today, firefighters say that the fire at the Columbia County Recycling Center is mostly contained.
We're just 7 days away from when Treasury officials say the U.S. will run out of cash to pay its bills. I'm Skyler Henry on Capitol Hill with where negotiations stand on raising the nation's debt ceiling.
And 3 years ago on this day, the murder of George Floyd shocked the nation. We'll tell you how people marked this day around the country.
3 years, amazing. All right, let's take a look outside. The geese are here. Do they ever leave? I don't think they leave anymore.
And the turkeys?
It's hard to tell these days. Warm for the weekend. That is some good news. Julian's in the backyard. I like today. It was great weather today.
Yeah, today's perfect, honestly. It's blue skies. Finally not seeing that haze from those wildfire smokes over in Canada. Instead, we're looking at pretty blue, plenty of sunshine, a nice light breeze, and temperatures themselves are feeling pretty perfect as well. Upper 60s right now, and we're going to slide into the upper 50s by the time we get into the rest of this evening. Overall, it's going to be comfortable and just flat out great. Today gets a 10 out of 10. As we get into tonight, we're going to see those temperatures still stay with the cooler range, even cooler than yesterday. We can even call it chilly, but as we see for our last 24 hours, we're still a bit cooler today than we were yesterday, especially for Mineral Points, which is in a double digits temperature change in terms of being cooler. But current temperatures around southern Wisconsin, 67 in Madison with 70 in Janesville and for Platteville alike around Dane County. We're looking at temperatures into those upper 60s as we go into the rest of our afternoon. Before tonight's temperatures will fall into the 40s for us, and it's going to be a bit chillier than it was yesterday. Wind speed is going to still carry that cool air throughout much of southern Wisconsin. Before tomorrow, we're going to start that trend for us to get even warmer as we head towards the weekend with temperatures into the middle 70s and lower 70s throughout much of southern Wisconsin. We'll talk more about how we can plan out Memorial Day weekend in a few moments. Southern, over to you.
All right, Julie, we'll check back. Thank you. Officials with the Portage Fire Department say a massive fire at a recycling center has been mostly contained, but crews will continue to work at the scene.
The fire spread quickly, but what started it remains under investigation. Crews worked through the night to control the fire before they were sent home at 4 a.m. to get some rest. Portage Fire Chief Troy Haas told us that a new set of personnel began working at the site around 7:30 this morning, working with local excavators to work over the debris from the fire and put out any remaining flames.
We're just going to keep working with excavators and stuff for them to move the garbage and stuff around. We'll put it out as they move it. We'll probably be here for, it's going to be on and off for a couple days probably.
Haas estimates that fire crews will remain at the recycling center for the next couple of days, as you just heard there, to monitor hot spots and put out any smaller fires that may still be burning. A Madison man says someone shot out of one of his car windows during a road rage incident on Stoughton Road earlier this week. Madison police say the incident happened around 6 a.m. yesterday on Stoughton Road near Flom Road. The man told police that he brake-checked a driver in a silver sedan that had been tailgating him in an attempt to get the other driver to stop driving so close to him, but that led the other driver to aggressively pull around him and ultimately pull out a gun, firing a single shot.
On this day 3 years ago, the murder of George Floyd during an arrest in Minneapolis shocked the nation and the world. Today, people around the country are marking that date. Floyd's death at the hands of police led to a number of convictions, including second-degree murder for fired Minneapolis officer Derek Chauvin, who pressed his knee into Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes. The incident, captured on cell phone video, sparked outrage and months of protest around the nation and the world amid calls for change. George Floyd's uncle, Selwyn Jones, spoke to CBS News.
Thank God for Darnella Frazier for having the strength to stand there and record that incident, because without Darnella Frazier taking the time to record that incident, we wouldn't be where we are today, and we do have a chance now.
In a statement commemorating the day, President Biden urged Congress to enact meaningful police reform and send it to his desk to sign. There's just 1 week left until the Treasury Department says the country is likely to run out of money to pay its bills.
That leaves little time for Congress to pass a bill to raise the debt ceiling, but so far, there is no deal between House Republicans and the White House. Skylar Henry has the latest from Capitol Hill.
Both House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Biden say they're optimistic a deal can be reached to avoid the nation defaulting on its debt.
Now, I want to be clear that the negotiations we're having with Speaker McCarthy is about the outlines of what the budget will look like, not about default. It's about competing visions for America.
Nothing will be resolved till we solve them all. We know where our differences lie. We worked well in past midnight last night. We're back at it today, trying to get to the conclusion that we can solve this whole problem.
Lawmakers left Washington for the Memorial Day weekend while talks continue.
The House should absolutely leave town. There's nothing more for the House to do. The Senate should pass Limit, Save, Grow.
I think if you listen that they're making progress, I expect us, based on what everyone's saying, the body language, that we'll be back here.
The biggest sticking point remains spending. Democrats have offered to freeze spending at current levels, but Republicans want to cut the budget.
We're in a sensitive phase with sensitive issues that remain. Those sensitive issues are the thorniest issues that we've been discussing.
Some Democrats say they don't want to see cuts to social programs that help the neediest Americans.
If there's going to be Democratic votes for an eventual package, folks want to make sure that our values are represented.
Failure to reach an agreement would impact every American. One of the top 3 credit agencies is warning of a potential downgrade to the U.S. credit rating if a deal isn't reached. That would lead to higher interest rates, making loans more expensive. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
And economists say in addition to higher interest rates, defaulting would likely lead to a recession and millions of people losing their jobs.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis made the announcement last night that many had been expecting for months. He is running for president, hoping to win the Republican nomination and take on President Biden in the general election. The Republican candidate posted a campaign launch video last night, but a much publicized online event with Twitter CEO Elon Musk was plagued with technical problems.
It did break the Twitter space, and so we're really excited with the enthusiasm.
Former President Trump called the launch a disaster, and President Biden tweeted a link to his fundraising site, noting this link works. GOP presidential candidate Nikki Haley also took aim at DeSantis for the GOP nomination as it grows more contentious. It's also getting bigger. South Carolina Senator Tim Scott joined the field earlier this week.
A big victory in court yesterday for Gabby Petito's parents after a judge ruled that the burn after reading letter written by Brian Laundrie's mother will be admitted into evidence. The Petito's attorney says the letter proves Roberto Laundrie knew her son Brian killed Gabby Petito and offered to help cover it up. Lawyers for the Laundries responded by saying the letter is undated and does not refer to in any way to Petito's death.
This sounds like an argument that you make at trial when everybody has seen what you're trying to present, and then at that point in time we retire the witness, we make some credibility determinations, and then we decide whether or not it's relevant or not relevant.
The judge was also asked by the Laundries attorneys to drop family lawyer Stephen Bertolino from being a named defendant in the case. That motion will be decided at a later date.
3 people are dead, including 2 police officers in a rare shooting and stabbing attack in Japan. A 4th victim was injured. It happened this afternoon in Nakano City. Residents there were being urged to stay indoors. Police say the gunman shot at officers as they responded to a call about a man stabbing a woman.
A car collided with the gates of Downing Street in central London today, where the British Prime Minister's home and offices are located, setting off a rapid security response in one of London's most fortified sites. The Metropolitan Police Force said a man was arrested at the scene on suspicion of criminal damage and dangerous driving. There were no reports of injuries. The Prime Minister was in his office at the time. Guam weathered its most powerful storm in years without major damage after Super Typhoon Mawar unleashed winds of up to 150 miles an hour and torrential rains on the western Pacific island. All but 1,000 of the island's 52,000 homes and businesses lost power, but government officials reported nothing unusual in hospital emergency rooms and only moderate damage such as flooding, fallen debris, and downed power lines. Many feared Typhoon Mawar would be similar to Typhoon Karen, which flattened most of the island back in 1962.
Well, your furnace may be off for the summer, I guess, unless you had to turn it on last night, but by the time it's back on this winter, it could end up costing you more than you're expecting. Wisconsin energy companies are looking to raise rates next year. Madison Gas and Electric is asking for a 7% increase, and Alliant Energy asked for 14% more. It's a price hike that consumer advocates say is too much.
We're concerned about the size of these increases because they're just a lot for people to handle. And so that's why we need to look at options for customers, because these are bigger than we've seen.
Both MG&E and Alliant say the increases are thanks to rises in natural gas and coal costs and more investment in renewable energy equipment. But the Citizens Utility Board says it can still find other ways to cut costs for consumers, namely lowering their profits.
A local veteran was inducted into the Madison VA Hall of Heroes this morning. Born in Whitehall, Wisconsin, U.S. Army Captain Tyrone Tony Paulson served during the Vietnam War, where he earned 3 Bronze Stars for Valor and 2 Army Commendation Medals for Valor. He retired in 2003 after 31 years with the Wisconsin State Patrol, where he served as a dispatch supervisor. He's been a member of Adaptive Sportsmen for several years, supporting disabled individuals with hunting and fishing.
I've been fighting cancer 23 years. I've had surgery, stem cell transplant, chemo, radiation, and I'm still here. And Dr. Chris Fletcher is taking care of me, and I'm really happy with what the VA hospital's done for me.
Tony and his wife of 49 years, Susan, live in Madison. Well, divers on a cleanup mission in Lake Mendota make all kinds of strange discoveries, from furniture to toilet tanks. Lots of trash is out there, but there are also some treasures.
Our Catherine Merck gives us the first chapter of a surprising story that you'll see completed tonight at 10 about one unusual find this weekend.
If you drop something in Lake Mendota, you might think it could be gone for good. But for the Four Lakes Scuba Club, they say just because it's out of sight doesn't mean it should be out of mind.
I just try to imagine, what were people doing that this ended up in the water? And usually I can't come up with a good explanation on how this got here.
Ellen Evans is the president of the club. She tells us on their cleanup dives, they find all kinds of items you'd never think would end up at the bottom of the lake. Divers have found furniture, bikes, a stove, bowling balls, just to start the bizarre list.
I found a cash register drawer that was empty, so I'm wondering how that ended up there.
While out this weekend, the team found an iPhone, and what they saw next, some might call unexpected.
She charged it up and it came on. She turned it into the UW Police Department. Maybe they could find the owner, or someone contacted them, and then she posted it on Reddit.
Police told us they were looking for the owner and hadn't come up with anyone yet. But we have a surprise twist to the story and a few more details we just found out. Coming up tonight at 10 on News 3 Now. Reporting in Madison, I'm Catherine Merck, News 3 Now.
Oh, don't do that to us. I want to see what happens.
What they call a tease.
Yes.
Catherine. Still to come, researchers are working on new weight loss drugs.
This time in pill form. We'll find out more about them. And Dr. Zorba Pastor will join us. We'll talk about how he feels about using diabetes drugs to lose weight. That's when Live at 4 continues.
Watching News 3 Now, live at 4.
Welcome back. The unofficial start to the summer travel season kicks off today, and forecasters are predicting near-record travel for this Memorial Day weekend.
AAA is expecting this to be the third busiest Memorial Day weekend since it started crunching holiday travel numbers back in 2000. As Americans kick off summer vacation into high gear, a key factor driving people to travel by car more is gas prices are lower compared to last year.
Right now, we're hovering in the 350, 355 range for gasoline prices for the national average. So that's very advantageous for people who are going to be going by car this year.
No matter how your car is powered, Mark just said, what's gas prices? As the owner of an electric car now, you can best maximize your fuel economy by sticking to the speed limit and ensuring that your tires are properly inflated. But even with cheaper gas or no gas at all, every road trip comes with headaches. An important reminder to keep your cool as summer travel heats up.
Absolutely. Well, scientists from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration say they expect the 2023 Atlanta hurricane season, which officially begins next week, to be near normal. But NOAA adds there's also a chance it'll be above or below normal, depending on two competing factors: a predicted El Nino that weakens hurricane season, and higher than normal ocean temperatures, which can fuel storms. The agency expects between 12 and 17 named storms. Of those, anywhere from 1 to 4 will be major hurricanes ranking as Category 3 or above.
It's time to prepare. Remember, it only takes one storm to devastate a community.
Well, last year, hurricane season produced 14 named storms, including Hurricane Ian, which made landfall in Florida in September. It caused 150 deaths and more than $112 billion in damage.
The president of Microsoft is urging federal leaders to regulate artificial intelligence. In a speech before members of Congress today, Brad Smith laid out a 5-point plan for addressing risks. It involves creating a new federal agency for AI oversight and supporting U.S. companies that compete with rivals in China. Smith is also asking President Biden to create new restrictions on how the federal government uses artificial intelligence.
Well, stocks were mixed on Wall Street as debt ceiling worries continue. The Dow Industrials lost 35 points, closing at 32,764. The Nasdaq, though, managed a 213-point rally, and the S&P 500 gained 36.
Well, with the success of drugs designed to treat type 2 diabetes and obesity, helping people lose weight, researchers are now working on more options. The experimental drugs aim to surpass weight loss stars like Ozempic. Several of the new medications that are now in development could increase weight loss and offer other additional health benefits, but it could be years before many of these new drugs reach the market.
Joining us now, Dr. Zorba Pastor, to talk about this and other topics. Good to see you.
Zorba, good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
So what is your stance on Ozempic as a weight loss drug?
I think we have to be careful about it. I mean, these drugs were designed for diabetes. We discovered that they really work well for weight loss, but I'm always thinking back to fenfluramine and phentermine. They were drugs that caused people to lose 30 to 50 pounds of weight loss, and then lo and behold, a few years later, Mayo Clinic research found that it caused heart disease and among other things, other problems with your heart. So I know that they're good for diabetes. I don't know how they're good for the long run. And there are several other drugs that are coming on to the market. Eli Lilly has a blockbuster one that's supposed to be even better. Once you start the drugs, you have to stay on the drugs forever and ever and ever. And we really don't know how they are for people who don't have diabetes. Well, so, you know, it's kind of buyer beware.
And the abuse of Ozempic is a big problem across the country.
It's a big issue. And it's a big issue because these are GLP-1 drugs. And what happens is a lot of people with diabetes can't get the drugs that they really need. And they're useful for that. So before you go out and decide to spend your $1,000 or $1,500 a month on something that you will need forever, I think you have to think about it, and I think we have to go back to the standby of what are we eating.
And now there are reports that people are losing their hair.
Yes, right. Yes. I did not take Ozempic. I lost my hair in the natural way.
Well, speaking of eating, Bratfest is coming up this weekend.
Right. I think,
and you found something interesting about sausages.
Where there's some
brats.
interesting. The FDA has looked, and the CDC, at cured meats. Now, brats themselves are not actually cured, but the product they used in brats has nitrates and nitrites in order to keep them stable, and so they may cause an issue with heart disease and stroke. So I think it's important to go have a brat at Bratfest. I mean, I think having a brat is good, but having 3 or 4 brats on a regular basis, I think we have to be careful. And it's a great idea to look at maybe having some fish on the grill and other things. So we've got some ideas of what you actually might have on the grill with fish. You know, you can buy one of these things that allow you to make fish on the grill. I happen to like salmon, teriyaki salmon on the grill. So enjoy your Bratfest, but think about protein that's going to be delicious on the grill that doesn't have as much fat and doesn't have nitrates.
But they're turkey brats and vegan brats.
Yes, exactly. And those are the other things you can have. And you know, we've got to have a good time. They're not as good. And that's why when I go to Bratfest, and I will go to Bratfest, I definitely will have a really good Johnsonville brat. I just love them. And whenever my kids come in from out of town, I have 2 kids in Seattle. One of our kids is in Boston. The first thing you want are brats, sauerkraut, and the right bread. And you know what? That's home cooking.
Every once in a while.
Yes, in moderation. Everything in moderation.
Zorba, thank you. Good to see you again.
Have a great weekend.
Well, still to come at 4, who doesn't love roses?
We met a man back in 1985 who really loves roses. Our Traveler Throwback Thursday is coming up after Julian's first warn forecast. I love seeing these shots of you, Mark. It's great.
Child. Well, take a look at this. Caleb Warrants just rode his bike across the entire country, but let's be honest. It's really the cat who's been by his side the entire time that you want to meet, and her name is Marilyn Monroe. She's been with Works ever since he started riding after he lost his job during COVID. He says having Marilyn as a companion makes it easier to make new friends on the road. Warren says he's written a couple of books about the experience, one from his own perspective and one from Monroe's perspective.
What a beautiful
cat.
I know.
To be on the road for a year?
Oh, my cat doesn't do anything fun like that.
Just sits around and eats.
Yeah.
Well, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington might look a bit shinier today.
Each year, volunteers wash it in preparation for Memorial Day. Republican Congressman Mike Waltz of Florida says he started this tribute 3 years ago as a reminder that freedom isn't free. He is a veteran and a Democratic congressman, as is Democratic Congressman Seth Moulton of Massachusetts, who helped with the cleaning. Moulton calls it a powerful sign of appreciation and bipartisanship, too, which is, we need a lot more of that.
It looks like a lot of volunteers chip in as well.
It's very moving. Have you ever seen it in person?
No, I haven't.
It's incredible.
Oh, yeah, no, it's really nice.
This is a great tradition.
It is. It really is.
We might as well have to do the windows over the weekend.
Hey, it's going to be good weather for it.
Yeah. Good weather to be outside.
Absolutely, especially for today, but even better for the weekend if you're more of a warmer type of person. So we're going to talk about how warm we're going to get for Memorial Day weekend, coming up with the first one forecast after the break. Well, if we call it Friday Junior or Friday Eve, nevertheless, Thursday has panned out to be just flat out perfect for us here in southern Wisconsin, and especially for Madison. Blue skies, sunshine, temperatures in the 60s. As we continue throughout the rest of tonight or even heading into this evening, we'll start to see those temperatures really start to slide even into the 50s. More comfortable start to our nights before we start to see really chilly conditions. Thanks to those northeasterly winds carrying in the Lake Michigan cool weather throughout much of southern Wisconsin, the temperatures themselves have stayed into the upper 60s, middle 60s. So it's been a comfortable day on tap for us once again. So the upper Midwest has mainly been cool, but as you can see for our surface setup, this is what's kind of happening for us. We have a high pressure system that's set up over the Great Lakes, which is actually blocking any kind of passage of any fronts that's over towards the west, which has brought in warmth and any kind of shower activity. And we're not going to be seeing any of it because of how powerful or how potent this high pressure system is. So instead, we're going to start to see those lows really start to track more towards the south and bringing the activity to those areas more so than the upper Midwest. So we're going to be in a stretch for some dry weather over the next several days. One thing we're going to be watching for, though, we have freeze warnings up to the northern parts, the northeastern parts of Wisconsin for tonight, as we're going to be seeing temperatures near freezing and even could be close to the 30s for us here in southern Wisconsin as well. Madison, we're looking for our lows to be around 40 degrees, but you can see near Camp Douglas and Watoma, the middle to upper 30s is going to be expected for us. So a rather chilly night, not even just a comfortable one. A chilly night is going to be on tap for us. But as we head into tomorrow, we're back to mild temperatures. Mid-70s throughout southern Wisconsin, about 74 degrees for Madison, 73 in Janesville, and for Platteville alike, with plenty of sunshine. And yes, it's still going to be rather quiet. So if you're going to be traveling for this weekend for Memorial Day, well, we're going to be looking at a gorgeous forecast for you to get to point A to point B if you're going to be traveling in terms of driving your car, either to Chicago or Minneapolis or any of the lakes. Otherwise, let's take a look at our future track. Tonight, of course, we're going to be seeing those temperatures fall. And then as we head into our Friday morning, a quiet one, a comfortable one, and then Friday afternoon around lunchtime, still plenty of sunshine. Not looking at much in terms of cloud cover. Those northeasterly winds are going to shift a bit more to the east. So we're still going to be on the mild but not too warm side throughout our Friday. And then transitioning into this weekend, we're going to be even warmer by the time we get into our Saturday and especially heading into our Sunday as well. And then Monday is really where we're going to be watching for temperatures to be just at that summer-like peak for Memorial Day. Otherwise, we're looking at cool mornings, a warming trend, and it's going to get even warmer after Memorial Day. Take a look at our 10-day forecast here. Here's how things are going to be trending. Enjoy the next couple of days because then next week, that is right, we could be seeing some 90-degree temperatures for our Wednesday and for our Thursday. It's a bit early for this time of year for us to start to jump to those temperatures, but nevertheless, we could be seeing some pretty hot conditions after such a nice warm start to June.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that it's Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, this year's already kind of flying by. It's insane.
I know.
Now it's already going to be hot.
Yeah. All right, Julian, thank you. Yeah. Well, do you ever wonder what happens to the leftovers you don't eat at a restaurant or cafeteria?
Brady Mallory has the answer to that, at least for SSM Health Monroe Hospital. Brady?
Yeah, you may think a hospital's only function is to help the sick, but many of them try to address other community needs. In this case, SSM and its head chef are using food as a medicine to help cure local hunger in Monroe.
So today was...
When you're in Michelle Vine's cafeteria, you won't be hungry.
So we did a Kahlua-style pulled pork sandwich that had coleslaw and homemade barbecue sauce.
The head chef at SSM Health Monroe Hospital knows the value of food.
So last week was our employee meal.
And after the employees are fed, she works to make sure the leftovers don't go to waste.
We've got some burgers and some veggie burgers, some buns and stuff that was left over from that.
It's all frozen for a heartwarming mission.
Package it up, label it for food pantry, and send it on over.
For more than 20 years, this hospital continues to donate leftover food to the Greene County Food Pantry.
It's all pre-cooked, easy stuff that people can just like pop in the microwave. Very well received.
Instead of ending up in the trash, Vine says she's glad the extra meals are going on tables that need them.
Food insecurity is a big issue everywhere across the world, of course, but this just gives us an opportunity to be able to give back to our community as well.
Feeding America says food insecurity rates affect rural areas more than urban areas and found 9 out of 10 counties with the highest food insecurity rates are rural. Campbell says he sees a growing need in Greene County with more people utilizing the food pantry.
The food gets used. It's very easy to find a need. It's having something consistent like SSM giving us a bunch of stuff has been very, very, very useful.
Vine says this work fits in with the hospital's overall mission of healing.
There is research that actually shows that people that are dealing with food insecurity, their health themselves is actually quite poor because they have to choose between getting the help that they need for their health or food. And lots of times, especially if it's with a family with children, they're going to choose the food and not that health care.
Whether it's at the hospital or at the food pantry, head chef Michelle Vines wants to make sure people are fed. Kindness is always on her menu. And who isn't hungry for more of that?
And if you're not going to use it, see if there's somebody that could use it.
And Vine says the donations mean up to 40 meals per month for the food pantry there.
It's an amazing idea.
Yeah, great idea.
How long have they been doing it?
For more than 20 years now.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And I think it's a big reminder to all of us that if you don't need something, someone else can use it.
Always.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Recycle.
Good for them.
Reuse. All right. Thank you, Brady.
Thank you, Brady.
Well, coming up next on Live at 4, our Traveler Throwback Thursday brings us a man with a rosy disposition.
And then coming up tonight at 5, the state could help pay for the upcoming NFL draft in Green Bay. Political reporter Will Keneally will tell us more about it at 5.
Giving the weather satellite a spin, we end up in New York City, where it's exactly the same temperature as it is here.
Oh,
68.
Nice day. Can you see any of the ships for the Fleet Week in the distance? I guess not. They're all in the city. Well, nothing says summer like a beautiful, fragrant rose growing in your yard.
Back in 1985, we met Bill Hall, and summer in his backyard is a sight and scent to behold. Here's this week's Traveler Throwback Thursday.
A rose is a rose is a rose. Gertrude Stein didn't get caught up in the beauty, the symbols of this flower, but I bet she never paid a visit to Bill Hall's rose garden. Tucked among the hills of the Kickapoo River Valley is bush after bush, rose after rose. It's a hobby for Bill now, but he doesn't grow them just for the beauty anyway. Oh, that's part of it, but Bill is a rose breeder. He hopes someday to make a living developing new, hardier plants.
Very much like dogs, you know, you've got different breeds of dogs, and then you cross them and you get mongrels.
These are some of the prettiest mongrels you'll ever see. What Bill does is crossbreed plants developing brand new roses, taking the best characteristics from different species to come up with whole new plants. These are roses you won't find anywhere else on Earth.
With a little camel's hair brush, I brush it on this part. These are the stigmas in here. Okay, and they have little openings, and the pollen goes down the tubes into this part, which is called the hip.
And if everything works right, the plants develop and flower. But it is a tricky business.
I had some bad luck this year, and I only got about 6 rose seedlings. I bought a rose just to grow in the garden. And then I bought another rose and had 2 roses, and then I read somewhere about hybridizing, and thought, well, before I knew it, and a couple dozen years later, this is the result.
Bill considers this his best effort so far. Spectacular red blossoms.
So it's got just about everything that I would like to have. It certainly is a good combination of everything I'm shooting for. Maybe not perfect yet, but it's. I think it is a good step forward.
Bill hopes to be able to market this bush someday, but he doesn't have a name for it yet. Roses always have such interesting names. But what's in a name anyway? A rose, after all, would smell as sweet.
Oh, what a great story.
Bill's no longer with us, but he left his mark.
That was fascinating to hear how he does that.
I know.
Oh, and I bet it was aromatherapy.
Yes,
you could almost smell it coming through the screen.
Absolutely. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court has been at the center of controversy for some years now.
How do Americans feel about that? We'll find out next as the director of the Marquette Law School poll joins us with some new Supreme Court polling numbers. That's when Live at 4 continues.
A quick update on our traffic as we're getting the rest of our Thursday afternoon rolling for us. Well, we're going to be starting off with things to be rather smooth along the Beltline as of right now, especially east and westbound. We are looking for a couple of slow spots, mainly on the ramps, but overall things are moving rather swimmingly as we're getting into close to the 5 p.m. rush hour. We are looking for some slower spots eastbound towards Monona, but otherwise still smooth as butter. It's going to do it for our traffic. Over to you.
All right, Julian, thank you. If your dog's a poopin', Braden's a scoopin'. That's the clever slogan of 9-year-old entrepreneur Braden Jarrell's Lansing, Michigan waste management business.
He means business. Look at that picture.
Scoop-a-poo. The pint-sized proprietor says he's starting his own business to help his elderly friends and neighbors handle the nasty but necessary task.
Good for him.
He's got a future, I guess.
Yes, he does.
The Marquette Law School poll has just released its latest national survey on the U.S. Supreme Court.
It finds a continuing decline in approval of the way the Supreme Court is doing its job from both parties.
Charles Franklin is the director of the Marquette Law School poll. Joins us now to break down the latest results. He is in Milwaukee. Charles, good to see you.
Hi, Charles. Good to see you.
Good to be here. Happy afternoon.
Happy afternoon to you. Memorial Weekend Eve, I guess it is. So
that's right.
What do the latest numbers show for the overall approval of the Supreme Court?
Yeah, 41% approval. That's a dip by 6 points since January. And it's down from a 66% approval in September of 2020. So that gives you a sense of just how much approval has suffered in the last 2.5, almost 3 years now. What we've seen over time is not only has the court been coming down, but in periods it rises back up a ways and then comes down again and rises and comes back down. But when it rises up, it's rising up to lower and lower and lower levels. So overall, approval continues on a downward trajectory.
What's the reason for that? What's the source of people's discontent?
The changes are really closely related to abortion decisions and when the court handles abortion cases, not just the Dobbs case that overturned Roe versus Wade last summer, but other abortion cases that they handle and that are public and controversial, of course. So I'm sure there are other things going on as well, but it's hard to look at the timing of these changes and not think it's connected to abortion. Recently, of course, we have the issue of Clarence Thomas and his financial disclosure issues. Those seem to have some small effect, but only a third of people have heard much about those financial disclosure issues. So it's not top of the mind the way the abortion issue has been at the top of people's minds.
The poll also rated individual justices. What do those numbers look like?
Well, first of all, the vast majority of people don't know the Supreme Court justices. There's no surprise in that. Justice Thomas is actually the best known, but fully 40% don't know him. And others go up into the 60s and even into the 70% that don't know them. It's kind of a mixed pattern of favorable and unfavorable, but despite the controversy over Justice Thomas, his favorable and favorables came down a little bit, but some of the liberal justices came down as much as his did. So I think it's not fair to say those changes are due to his difficulties. Rather, they may reflect this overall decline in approval of the court, and it sort of affects left and right, liberal and conservative justices somewhat similarly.
This number is somewhat disturbing, though, the lack of confidence in the Supreme Court.
And it goes beyond that. I think I could easily get very depressed about the fact that we asked about 8 or 9 different institutions, including the Supreme Court, state courts, lawyers, local news media. Every group that we asked about is net negative, with more negative views than positive views. And so if you think that our institutions are really critical for the society, both those of government and those of the media that inform us about government and those of legal institutions like lawyers are all net negative. It does suggest that we're in a very negative view of a lot of our institutions right now.
Absolutely.
Very interesting.
We'll have to leave it there, Charles, but we will talk to you soon. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend. Thank you, Charles.
And we'll have a final check of that weekend forecast coming up.
In today's Final Touch, there is the Met Gala, of course, with its crazy outfits.
Well, now we have the Met Gala-inspired Pet Gala this week in New York. The event is the brainchild of pet courtier Anthony Rubio, who emulated a dozen of the most popular designs from this year's event and dressed up a cat and some dogs. It's easier said than done, Rubio says. He has to make everything comfortable for the animals and make sure the outfits stay on, adding authenticity to the event. Rubio and his team
Look at the glasses.
The iconic backdrops to go with the unique designs. Says the outfitters are quite labor intensive because there are no patterns to cut after.
Those are outstanding. All small dogs, though. No big dogs like Tate, Eric.
Absolutely.
You don't want him at that.
All right, that's our time for now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here again tomorrow. News 3 Now at 5 starts right now.